Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to Psychology Every Day, day 35. Today, I have a real banger for you. I want to talk about Freud and Jung, two psychologists, great thinkers that I've read a lot about. And as most of you know, Freud was one of just the biggest pioneer in psychology, and if he was often referred to as the king of psychology, and Jung was referred to as the crown prince. They were great friends. Jung was, 15 years younger or whatever, and they had sort of a mentor, father and son relationship as well. And of course, they agreed on a lot of things. They were both, psychodynamic psychologists. However, Jung transitioned into being more of a everything later, but they also had a famous falling out and a split, which shocked the entire psychology community. And I made this today. Uh, we'll see how it works, but basically, it is some of the fields or whatever where they thought differently on various things. Some of which, they disagreed and they agreed to disagree, and some things which actually, caused this major split between them. Then we're going to draw a conclusion who was right, and yeah, let's get to it. So, free will. It's very hard for you to read there, perhaps. Freud was an outspoken atheist, which at the time was, of course, quite a big deal. This was in the beginning of the 18th century, right? Or the 19th? No, 18th. Anyway, and he saw religion as a sort of a defense mechanism, like a lot of, modern atheists do today, where they sort of, he said it was a sort of a projection of the father figure, and you're just religious because you need someone to be responsible for you, basically. Jung, however, was very spiritual, grew up in a religious home, and he said that he didn't believe in God, he knew God existed. And so while Freud said that there's not a lot of free will, we're driven by these subconscious drives, usually sex stuff, Jung said that we do have free will, but we have to become whole as a person in order to, not get ruled by these subconscious drives. And one of the major things that Jung talked about in his text about Freud was that he himself was spiritual while Freud was not. And this, of course, had a big impact on their view of the subconscious, where Freud saw it as sort of a mechanical thing, a combination of the id and the superego, which is basically, our animal self versus what we have learned to become from society. So next subject, we have dreams. I had to write quite small. Oh shit, I hope I don't rip the entire paper. Perhaps I will, but don't worry, I know it by heart. Trust me. Oh shit. There we go. Dreams were, Freud's major input into the field of psychology, and his huge work was, dream interpretation, where he set out to actually create like a manual or a dictionary where any and every dream, had a scientific backing of what it meant through thousands and thousands of case studies. And it was very scientific. Like I said, Freud was more of an atheist. He was very scientific, and his sex drive was based on Darwin's sort of evolution theory, very scientific. And he wanted to really chart this field of dreams. Jung, however, said that dreams are always subjective. He also said that he didn't have a theory about how dreams work or why it is. He only said that I know that dream interpretation helps people in a clinical environment, and therefore I use it. It is extremely effective, he said. And he wasn't sure if you even could understand dreams, which is, crazy considering he spent literally in his entire life trying to do just that. So they believe different things about dreams. Freud that set out that a dream means one specific thing. A specific dream means this thing. And Jung explained in his books that he had encountered, patients that had identical dreams, but they meant very different things, such as there was a dream where a man was riding bareback with his shirt off on a horse with his friends, and they were to jump over a ravine, but only he made it to the other side. All his friends fell into the ravine and died. And he had a patient that was, 17 years old. And for him, it was sort of a longing to, prove himself and, become a man instead of a boy. But he also had an older patient that was like 74 years old and was in a wheelchair that had been in the war. And for him, that very same dream represented all of his regrets and sadness in his life, because he had already done those things and they were not good, right? So moving on to the next, libido, which is what caused the falling out in 1912 or so between Jung and Freud. Oh shit. Right. Fuck it. Let's go. Can't see anything. Doesn't matter, because I know it by heart 1,000 times over. Libido is what Freud, he took this word from, ancient texts because he liked it, and he used it to describe the psychic energy that drives us. And basically, this psychic energy not only drives us in real life, but it is what, forms our dreams, because he said that dreams are basically wishes, something that also Jung did not agree with. But this remains in our language to this day. If I ask you what your dream job is, it is what job do you wish to have, and stuff like that. Jung did not agree with this. He copied the word libido and used it to describe life energy, which basically includes sex, but also, all our other drives, such as drive for power, for love, for, food if you are very hungry. Basically, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, life energy is, what Jung described as libido. And Freud, after, his crown prince stole the word that he loved and denied his most beloved theory of his own, they were done after that. And I don't know if they even spoke from like 1912 until 1945, 39, sorry, where Freud died. Very sad. I wonder what, could have been if they had kept working together. However, Freud was very, stubborn, arrogant, perhaps, brilliant, of course, but that didn't. It kind of worked, actually, because Jung was very humble, and, the age difference made it so that the mentorship dynamic worked out. Anyway, the last one. Oh, shit. It's because the tape has been on for like more than 5 minutes. Doesn't matter. Ideas. Freud had so many ideas. He invented, basically the subconscious, because they thought before that we were just being inhabited by spirits, bad spirits or whatever, when we were crazy. And you have to remember that Freud set out on, a pathological path. He wanted to cure people, he wanted to fix their mental problems, and even though he did, explore and explain the psyche, which is, interesting in an academic context, that wasn't his goal really. It was to become a superior clinician and then write a manual for how to do this for other people. But he basically, invented the subconscious and this whole model together with defense mechanisms, which is just a huge idea in psychology. It is very big. And then as well, Let's see what it says. The importance of childhood, which was previously, not really thought about, and is perhaps, I would dare to say, like 20% of modern psychology, if not more. Especially when you talk about attachment theory and toxic attachment and all of that stuff. All of that is from Freud, and basically coping. When we're talking about defense mechanisms, coping and projection, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And together with parent complexes like dad issues, or mom issues, and Oedipus complexes, and all of this came from basically no previous knowledge. He didn't stand on anyone's shoulders, really. So when we talk about Freud was arrogant and brilliant, it's not, it cannot be overstated or understated, whatever. He basically pioneered the field in a practically impossible way. It's as if like no one had previously thought of singing. Basically, music was only instrument. It was drums and guitars, and then someone not only invented singing, but did it well, did it in several styles. And even if it wasn't perfect, Freud's contributions to the field is insane, basically. Uh, they talk about all of the critique against him, but that it just basically shows how big and influential he was. And he stated in his own books that the problems with dream interpretation is that people had to start over and over and over again because they had to use this empirical method, which basically you don't have anything to try and disprove according to this scientific method. So what did he want to do is create this huge model via inductive research, and then have everyone else do the empiricism on it. And he truly succeeded in that because people have been trying to disprove it forever since. So let's move to the ideas of Jung, and basically it's a fat list as well. The shadow and the individuation and the self-fulfillment. He pioneered. You talk today about self-realization. Jung was 40 years before everyone else, and he did it in a way that, honestly, if you compare it, even the people who came later, 40 years later and 50 and 60 and 80 years later, their theories are weak and dumb compared to Jung's, and that is honestly a problem with Jung. He was, I swear to God, he had basically 200 IQ, and was so far ahead, and studied. He knew, I don't know, 6 or 7 languages, and 4 of them were dead languages, just so that he could learn ancient texts. He spent his entire life learning and reading mythology, religion, and philosophy, and tried to explore and understand the psyche. And beyond the shadow and the individuation, he talked about typology. He basically made the modern personality psychology, even though he would disagree with a lot of the recent models. But then synchronizations, his symbols and archetypes and the collective unconscious is what he basically spent 30 years of his later life on. And the problem is, learning everything that such a smart person had learned when spending literally all of his time, his entire life, is basically impossible, right? Because how are you going to catch up unless you do the same thing? Then you can hope to maybe learn as much as he did. And, who has the time, I guess. But you can for sure get some, super duper proper insights if you're just willing to accept his propositions, because he was not as scientific as Freud. He didn't really care about it. He basically was like, if it gives results, it's good. So like phenomenology, right? he used dream interpretation without really caring about if it was scientific or not, because he saw that it gave results over and over and over again. And that was all that mattered to him. And then he kept, building on this idea of the symbols and archetypes. Basically, not only because of, his clinical practice, but also because it's truly fascinated him. And it is just an incredibly fascinating subject that is kind of hard to get into, but even harder to get out of, honestly. So let's get to the conclusions. It is fucked. But basically, if you talk about relative contributions to what existed previously, Freud is unbeatable in basically any field. I don't want to argue, with the physicists or the biologists about Newton or Darwin or whatever, but regarding everyone I've read, even if it's philosophers or psychologists, Freud is just it's just crazy, actually, how much he got right from nothing. And Jung is by far the smartest person. I've read, a bunch of philosophers like Hume and Kant and a lot of other psychologists, and Jung is it's mind-blowing how intelligent he is, and it's really tough getting through his books, not because they're hard to read or anything. He writes pretty well, but I used to have this method, right, where I would study books and not just read them, and on every page I would write down like one interesting thing, and then I would go back and try to process all this. But with Jung's books, it's like 20 interesting ideas per page, and it just takes months to get through a book. So let me know what you think in the comments. We're almost up to 100 subscribers, and I would be so happy if you would, ask me a question about anything you want to know about psychology, or let me know what you think about this video. And also, if you want to know, Jung would definitely win in a fist fight because he was taller than Freud and heavier than Freud. And even though Freud did a lot of cocaine, he was basically sedentary and had a lot of health issues. So Jung would beat him up quite easily. And that is, I guess, relevant to some. Anyway, have a great day, everyone. I will see you tomorrow.